Yeah, so I just finished reading Chapter 7 of B.J. Penn's autobiographical Why I Fight. And it was a very short chapter. And so this video on my thoughts and reflections regarding it is going to be relatively short, I think. Basically, what's going on at this time, this is the year 2000, and he has just finished winning the world championship in jiu-jitsu at the Mundials in Brazil. And all of this time, as he's been training, the last few years to win these Mundials, he has had in mind the notion that he's probably going to be a jiu-jitsu teacher in the long run, and and that was in continue defending his title. But after winning, it was like a release. He said, it was like he had done what he had intended to do with jiu-jitsu, and all of a sudden there was this huge weight off of his shoulders. He went home to Hilo just to relax, and then looking at things at home, he realized his buddies there were running that jiu-jitsu school that he'd started in, and he didn't see himself wanting to try to start a second school there and compete with them, and maybe he could teach alongside them, but really wasn't the potential that he thought for his future. So now he's thinking, what should I do? I got to do something, because he was starting to feel idle, and even though it had been not very long at all since he'd won the championship. He'd just been idle for maybe a couple of weeks, and it was starting to drive him crazy. So then he had registered, I guess, to start school at West Valley Junior College in California, and because there was a wrestling group there, and he thought maybe he would get involved with wrestling. So he went back to California to start that, and at the same time he thought, well, maybe I should check out this MMA. And so he talked to those guys at the American Kickboxing Academy, that Frank Shamrock, and in particular he talked to what's his name, that Javier Mendez, and asked him, can you train me in MMA? And right away Javier agreed to do that, and so he began training, and it wasn't long before he was offered a fight. He was set up to fight in lightweight to take on Caol Uno in the King of the Cage, and so he started training for this fight. And once he was doing this, it felt like his old self again. He totally immersed himself into the training for MMA with the same kind of vigor that he had in his training in jiu-jitsu when he was working on going to the Mundials, except now he's working on becoming a champion in MMA. And he really works for this fight, but then it's coming closer to it, and he just gets a phone call one day, and the fight is off. And it turns out this Uno is going to or he's been given an offer to fight in the UFC instead, in the UFC 30, which is scheduled for Atlantic City, and Uno's going to fight there. And so this gets BJ thinking, because if Uno was training to fight him, and now he's going into the UFC, and BJ watches the fight, and he says, they're both very, very good, but he thinks he could have stood there and traded punches with either of them, or traded strikes with either of them, then maybe he's himself is good enough for the UFC. And sure enough, it's not long at all before he gets a phone call and an offer to fight in UFC 31. And so, this chapter is very, very short, like I said, and it's just basically introducing where he's going next. And it just happened like that. All this time he'd been avoiding and telling people he wasn't really interested in doing the MMA. He was just totally into jiu-jitsu. But when he reached the top of jiu-jitsu, there was nothing left. He didn't have that intense drive to continue with it because he'd reached the top. And so right away he turned to do something else. And that shows something of who BJ is, what his character is, and what his needs are. I think, he's the kind of guy that Hello. Hey. Oh, excellent. Okay. Can you put her through to me? Hello? Hi, you have a rattlesnake in a bucket in your yard? This is Ryan Heavyhead. I will come and get it from you. Where do I go?
We're in the canyons, 247 Canyon Estates, Wyoming.
Okay.
New show host.
Oh, have you are you the same one that phoned before?
Less than a week.
Twice? Yeah. You guys just keep getting the snakes.
Oh man, our kids play outside. This is a bad trend.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I'll swing over and grab it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Yeah, I've got to go pick up a rattlesnake. But anyway, yeah, it shows, what kind of a person BJ is. That, in a way, he's one of these like highly driven people, and I can identify with him. He gets into something, he goes full tilt, and then he takes it to some place that whatever his goal was, he gets to that goal, and now he needs something else to do full tilt. I can totally understand that, and it's working for him. So we're gonna see what happens in the next chapter. He gets into the UFC, and I gotta go fetch a snake now.